Welcome back to the last session in this module where we'll be looking at establishing compensation and benefits. How did you find the last activity, by the way? Identifying your star candidate. I'm sure you found it very useful. When you found your star candidate, of course, you want to make sure that the pay and the benefits is going to be attractive enough for them to say yes to the job. So the objective of this session is to define the role of compensation and benefits. We will also describe the tools that can be applied to set up an adequate compensation and benefits system. So, what is compensation? Compensation is the total cash and non-cash payments that you give to an employee in exchange for the work that they do for your business. Now, compensation includes the basic pay, as we call it, maybe monthly or hourly wages, sales commission, overtime, bonus pay, allowances, maybe shift allowance, transport allowance, recognitions or special merit awards, insurance, stock options, things like that. All of these things make up compensation. Now, when we talk about benefits, what do we mean? Employee benefits are defined as indirect, non-cash or cash compensation paid to an employee above and beyond the regular salary or wages. So what we're saying is that benefits are offered to employees to enhance the compensation package received by employees. Let's look at some type of benefits. There's a whole range. We have insurance. There can be a crèche or daycare facility on the company premises. Holidays. Holidays can be paid or unpaid. Sick leave, exam leave, mobile phones, loans, free meals or subsidized meals, free transport or subsidized transport, funding of education, flexible work arrangements. The list is endless. As an SME owner, you have to look at market trends, what your competitors are doing, and the financial capacity of your company when you come to offering these things. We'll talk more about those in a minute. But benefits that will enhance your package will be very good for your employees. There are all kinds of benefits which you can use, which you can adapt to suit your own company. What are the goals of the compensation and benefit system? Now, the compensation and benefit system must have the function of creating and maintaining the company's competitive advantage together with retaining a strong labor force. So you can see that there's a dual purpose there. You have your competitive advantage and you want to retain a strong labor force. So one of the most important components of running a successful business is keeping your employees happy and providing them with enough incentive to maximize their productivity. Like I said earlier, there are different ways to accomplish this, but offering your employees benefits that go beyond legal requirements tends to be effective. And there are lots of advantages to that as well. But let us take a look at the income structure. What are the components of an income structure? There are 4 components of an income structure. We have the basic salary. We have allowances. Now, under allowances, you can have allowances that relate to hazardous situations, seniority, telephone, and so on. We have bonus. And of course, under the bonus, it can be linked to productivity or quality, individual performance, or the company's overall output. And then lastly, the last component is benefits. And we listed a whole list of benefits earlier on. In addition to your income structure, most employees always look at the pay first, isn't it? So, you have to make sure that your pay scales are reasonable. And what do we mean by reasonable pay scales? Your compensation and benefits system should be based on your business goals. Your compensation and benefits budget will depend on your financial capacity. And the structure of your compensation, benefits, and bonuses should be reasonable. So there are three elements here. Based on business goals, depend on your financial capacity, and should be reasonable. How can you say your pay scale is adequate? You can ensure that your pay scale is adequate if it is competitive, equitable, that is being fair, and it is reasonable. These are the three factors of an adequate pay scale. A pay scale will be judged adequate if it is competitive, equitable, and reasonable. So, how do we go about establishing this? The first step is we collect information. We need data. So, you can check the media and look at advertised positions and the pay range that is being offered. You can ask candidates what their expectations are, their pay expectations. Of course, you can look at trade, industry standard, your professional bodies, what the standard is. Or lastly, but this will be expensive or for most SMEs, is to commission a consultant to conduct a salaries and wages survey for you. When you have collected your information, the next step is for you to establish your job grades. The first thing is you have to summarize separate jobs into groups. Next, you then establish the job grades and their respective criteria. And lastly, you have to match the job groups to the appropriate job grades. Let's see an example in the next slide. Now you can see from this slide that in the first table, we have the group and the job. If you look at the right column first where we have job, sales director is the job. It falls under the group for directors. So that means that if you have a sales director, finance director, advertising director, HR director, whatever, that is the job. They will all those positions, all those jobs will fall under the group of directors. Another example there is where you have, for the job, salespersons. So you have salespersons, you have receptionists, admin staff, and maybe factory workers. All of these jobs can be grouped under worker and staff. That is how you do your job groupings. The second table shows you the grades and the criteria used for the job grades. So, the first one, the director. We can see that the criteria there says the director will be defining the business operations, planning strategy, and making the annual business plan. If you look all the way down, let's go to staff. You'll see that the criteria for staff for that grade is carrying out the tasks assigned and being trained professionally. From this example, you can see the difference in the way the grades and the criteria for each grade has been clearly given. Once you have defined your job grades, this will help you in creating a pay structure, and we'll look at that next. So the third step is to create a pay structure by establishing pay grades and setting pay ranges. You have to start with a job description. You describe your jobs to reflect the market outside. To then establish your pay grade, you have to group jobs that have the same relative internal or external worth. And you saw that on the example we showed on the previous slide. You then pay the same rate or within the same pay range to this group. In setting your pay range, you have to set upper and lower bounds of the possible compensation for individuals whose jobs fall in a particular pay grade, and use market data from surveys, from your own investigations to determine a midpoint. So as an example, you may have secretarial and administrative positions in one job group in your company. Let's say job group 5. You decide to call it job group 5. You can then have pay ranges or steps of 4 within this job group 5. This will mean that 2 employees can be on job group 5 but will be on different pay ranges or steps within that job group. The number of job steps in each grade is either great or small depending on the company's decision on the complexity of their job scale. But I would advise that as SMEs, we make things as simple as possible. How do we then effectively position the pay scale? Positioning the pay scale means defining the position of the pay scale against the market at 3 levels. So looking at the slide, you can see we have market pay there on the left-hand side with the arrow going up. We have the above market rate, we have the median, and then we have the below market rate. Key factors that should be applied when positioning your pay scales are the business goal and the financial capacity of the company. This is very important. If the financial position of the company allows, you can position your pay scales higher than the market average in order to attract the best employees and rapidly develop your business operations. However, where the business has a potential for stable operations with a lasting tradition, then the salary scales need not be positioned at high levels. You have to pay attention to developing your own corporate culture to encourage employees' commitment. Competitive compensation is necessary for an employee to be happy. But remember, this is not always the motivator for better performance. So with this in mind, pay salaries that are in line with your competition, meaning the small businesses in your city or in your industry. There could be exceptions to this rule where you feel that the role is particularly valuable to your company and so you want to pay above the competition. When you have positioned your pay scales, let your compensation be reasonable. And you can apply some approaches. For instance, you might decide to pay low salaries and have a high bonus, or you pay a portion of the salary with the remainder being in form of benefits, or your allowances may be flexible, meaning that employees can choose the allowances they want in addition to their salary. So you can set up a structure that will suit your company. How then do we apply systemic, or who applies it within the company? Now, as the business owner, you decide on the competitiveness of the pay scales, the positioning, and also you have to define the compensation and benefits policy. HR will then pick that up by ensuring that equitable and reasonable pay scales are set up. They will also anticipate any necessary pay increases and make sure that the HR budget is balanced. Your rewards committee, if you have one, will then revise and approve these pay scales. Of course, remember that any pay scales that you decide to establish can be revised, can be amended to suit your company. Remember that your pay scales must meet your business goals. You have your business plan from which your HR plan has been distilled. And from your HR plan, you have all the other plans like your recruitment plan, your compensation and benefits plan, and your retention plan. Our next slide, as we round up, reinforces the point that your compensation and benefits budget must depend on your financial capacity. So looking at this flow chart, we can see that firstly, you set the compensation and benefits budget in line with your newly established pay scales. You then make sure you balance it with an affordable budget. Your rewards committee will look at it, will review it to see whether it's feasible for the company to go along with these pay scales. If it's feasible, they approve it. If it's not feasible, they don't approve it. If it's not feasible, then that means that you cannot apply maybe a salary adjustment for many employees at one time, or you may need to prioritize groups of employees to be considered for a pay rise. But when the plan is approved, when your pay scales are approved, you can then detail your action plan. When you detail your action plan, you then go to implement it. Looking at all of this together, a quick recap will show you that your HR planning is very, very important, because from your planning, you are then going to distill all your other plans, and your plan must be aligned to your business objectives. We have now come to the end of this module. Thank you for staying the course with me. You still have one more end of session activity to do. And in this activity, you are presented with 3 scenarios. As a company owner, how would you resolve the issues presented? As a recap, all the components of this module that we've gone through, good planning for HR, being the recruitment compass for your company, interviewing technique for identifying your star candidate, and having a robust compensation and benefit system will ensure that you attract and retain a competent and loyal workforce. I hope you have found this module enlightening and helpful for your business. You'll now have 35 multi-choice questions for your assessment. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.